Septimus, what is carnal embrace?
Carnal embrace is the practice of throwing one's arms around a side of beef.
Is that all?
No, a shoulder of mutton, a haunch of venison, well hugged, an embrace of grouse, caro, carnis, feminine flesh.
Is it a sin?
Not necessarily, my lady, but when carnal embrace is sinful, it is the sin of the flesh, QED. We had caro in our Gallic wars. The Britons live on milk and meat. Lacta et carne vivant. I'm sorry that the seed fell on stony ground.
That was the sin of Onan, wasn't it, Septimus?
Yes. He was giving his brother's wife a Latin lesson, and she was hardly the wiser after it than before. I thought you were finding a proof for Fermat's last theorem.
It is very difficult, Septimus. You will have to show me how.
If I knew how, there would be no need to ask you. Fermat's last theorem has kept people busy for 150 years, and I hoped it would keep you busy long enough for me to read Mr. Chater's poem in praise of love, with only the distraction of its own absurdities.
Our Mr. Chater has written a poem?
He believes he has written a poem, yes. I can see that there might be more carnality in our algebra than in Mr. Chater's couch of Eros.
Oh, it was not my algebra. I heard Jellyby telling Cook that Mrs. Chater was discovered in carnal embrace in the gazebo.
Really? With whom?
What do you mean, with whom?
With what? Sorry. With what? Exactly so. The idea is absurd. Where did this story come from?
Mr. Noakes.
Mr. Noakes?
Bubba's landscape architect. He was taking bearings in the garden when he saw, through his spyglass, Mrs. Chater in the gazebo in the carnal embrace.
And do you mean to tell me that Mr. Noakes told the butler?
No, Mr. Noakes told Mr. Chater. Jellyby was told by the groom, who overheard Mr. Noakes telling Mr. Chater in the stable yard.
Mr. Chater being engaged in closing the stable door.
What do you mean, Septimus?
So, thus far, the only people who know about this are Mr. Noakes, the landscape architect, the groom, the butler, the cook, and of course Mrs. Chater's husband, the poet.
And Arthur, who was cleaning the silver, and the boot boy, and now you.
Of course. What else did he say?
Mr. Noakes?
No, not Mr. Noakes, Jellyby. You heard Jellyby telling the cook.
Cook hushed him almost as soon as he started. Jellyby did not see that I was being allowed to finish yesterday's upstairs rabbit pie before I came to my lesson. I think you have not been candid with me, Septimus. A gazebo is not, after all, a meat larder.
I never said my definition was complete.
Is carnal embrace kissing?
Yes.
And throwing one's arm around Mrs. Chater?
Yes. Now, Fermat's last theorem...
I thought as much. I hope you are ashamed.
Aye, my lady.
If you do not teach me the true meaning of things, who will?
Yes, I am ashamed. Carnal embrace is sexual congress, which is the insertion of the male genital organ into the female genital organ for purposes of procreation and pleasure. Fermat's last theorem, by contrast, asserts that when x, y, and z are whole numbers, each raised to the power of n, the sum of the first two can never equal the third when n is greater than 2. See, look. Nevertheless, that is the theorem.
It is disgusting and incomprehensible. Now when I am grown to practice it myself, I should never do so without thinking of you.
Thank you very much, my lady. Was Mrs. Chater down this morning?
No. Tell me more about sexual congress.
There's nothing more to be said about sexual congress.
Is it the same as love?
Oh no, it's much nicer than that. I am teaching, Jellyby.
Beg your pardon, Mr. Hodge. Mr. Chater said it was urgent you received his letter.
Oh, very well. Thank you.
Mr. Chater asked me to bring him your answer.
My answer? Well, my answer is that, as is my custom and my duty to his lordship, I am engaged until 11:45 in the education of his daughter. When I am done, and if Mr. Chater is still there, I will be happy to wait upon him in the gun room.
I will tell him so, thank you.
What is for dinner, Jellyby?
Oh, boiled ham and cabbages, my lady, and a rice pudding.
Oh, goody.
Well, so much for Mr. Noakes. He puts himself forward as a gentleman, a philosopher of dress, a a visionary who can move mountains and cause lakes, but in the scheme of the garden he is as the serpent.
When you stir your rice pudding, Septimus, the spoonful of jam spreads itself round, making red trails like the picture of the meteor in my astronomical atlas. But if you stir backwards, the jam will not come together again. Indeed, the pudding does not notice and continues to turn pink just as before. Do you think this is odd?
No.
Well, I do. You cannot stir things apart.
No more you can. Time must needs run backward. And since it will not, we must stir our way onward, mixing as we go. Disorder out of disorder into disorder until pink is complete. Unchanging and unchangeable. And we are done with it forever. This is known as free will or self-determination. Sit.
Septimus, do you think God is a Newtonian?
An Etonian. Almost certainly, I'm afraid. We must ask your brother to make it his first inquiry.
No, Septimus, a Newtonian. Septimus, am I the first person to have thought of this?
No.
I have not said yet.
If everything from the furthest planet to the smallest atom of our brains acts according to Newton's law of motion, what becomes of free will?
No,
God's will.
no,
Sin.
no.
Very well.
If you could stop every atom in its position and direction, and if your mind could comprehend all the actions thus suspended, then if you were really, really good at algebra, you could write the formula for all the future. And although nobody can be so clever to do it, the formula must exist, just as if one could.
Yes. Yes, as far as I know, you are the first person to have thought of this. In the margin of his copy of Arithmetica, Fermat wrote that he had discovered a wonderful proof of his theorem, but the margin being too narrow for his purpose, did not have room to write it down. The note was found after his death, and from that day to this.
Oh, I see now. The answer is perfectly obvious.
This time you may have overreached yourself. Mr. Chater, perhaps my message miscarried. I'll be at liberty at 11:45, if that is convenient.
It is not convenient, sir. My business will not wait.
Then I suppose you have Lord Croom's opinion that your business is more important than his daughter's lesson.
I do not, but if you like, I will ask his lordship to settle the point.
My lady, take Fermat into the music room. There will be an extra spoonful of jam if you find his proof.
There is no proof, Septimus. The thing that is perfectly obvious is that the note in the margin was a joke to make you all mad.
Now, sir, what is this business that cannot wait?
I think you know it, sir. You've insulted my wife.
Insulted her? That would deny my nature, my conduct, and the admiration in which I hold Mrs. Chater.
I have heard of your admiration, sir. You insulted my wife in the gazebo yesterday evening.
You are mistaken. I made love to your wife in the gazebo. She asked me to meet her there. I have her note somewhere. I dare say I could find it for you, and if someone is putting it about that I did not turn up, by God, sir, it is a slander.
You damn lecher. You would drag down a lady's reputation to make refuge for your cowardice? It will not do. I'm calling you out.
Oh, Chater, 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 my dear friend.
You dare to call me that? I demand satisfaction.
Mrs. Chater demanded satisfaction, and now you are demanding satisfaction. I cannot spend my time day and night satisfying the demands of the Chater family. As for your wife's reputation, it stands where it ever stood.
You blackguard.
I assure you, Mrs. Chater is charming and spirited, with a pleasing voice and a dainty step. She is the epitome of all the qualities society applauds in her sex. And yet, her chief renown is for a readiness that keeps her in a state of tropical humidity, as would grow orchids in her drawers in January.
Damn you, Hodge. I will not listen to this. Will you fight or not?
Not? There are no more than 2 or 3 poets of the first rank now living, and I will not shoot one of them dead over a perpendicular poke in a gazebo with a woman whose reputation could not be adequately defended with a platoon of musketry deployed by a rotor.
Ha, you say so. Who are the others, in your opinion? No, no. This goes very ill, Hodge. I will not be flattered out of my cause. You say so, do you?
I do, and I would say the same to Milton, were he not already dead. Not the part about his wife, of course.
But among the living, Mr. Southey.
Southey I would have shot on sight.
Yes, he has fallen off. I admired Thalaba quite, but Maddock, oh dear me, we are straying from the business here. You took advantage of Mrs. Charter. And if that were not bad enough, it appears every stable boy and scullery maid on the strength.
Damn me, have you not listened to a word I said?
I've heard you, sir, and I will not deny I welcome your regard. God knows how one is little appreciated if one stands outside the courtier of hacks and placemen who surround Geoffrey and the Edinburgh.
My dear Chater, they judge a poet by the seeking plan of Lord Holland's table.
By heaven, you are right, and I would very much like to know the name of the scoundrel who slandered my verse drama, Maid of Turkey, in the Piccadilly Recreation too.
The Maid of Turkey? I have it by my bedside. When I cannot sleep, I take up the Maid of Turkey like an old friend.
There you are, and the scoundrel wrote he would not give it to his dog for dinner were it covered in bread sauce and stuffed with chestnuts. When Mrs. Charter read that, she wept, sir, and would not give herself to me for a fortnight, which recalls me to my purpose.
The new poem, however, will make your name perpetual.
Whether it do or not.
It is not a question, sir. No coterie can oppose the acclamation of the reading public. The couch of Eros will take the town.
Is that your estimation?
It is my intent.
Is it? Is it? Well, well, I do not understand you.
You see, I have an early copy sent to me for review. I say review, but I speak of an extensive appreciation of your gifts and your rightful place in English literature.
Well, I must say that is certainly... You have written it?
Not yet.
Ah, and how long does?
To be done right, it first requires a careful rereading of your book, of both your books, several readings, together with outlying works, for an exhibition of deference or disdain as the case merits. I make notes, of course, I order my thoughts, and finally, when all is ready and I am calm in my mind...
Did Mrs. Charter know of this before you?
I think she very likely did.
There is nothing that woman would not do for me. Now you have insight to her character. Yes, by God, she is a wife to me, sir.
For that alone, I would not make her a widow.
Captain Bryce once made the same observation.
Captain Bryce did.
Mr. Hodge, allow me to inscribe your copy in happy anticipation. Lady Thomasina's pen will serve us.
Your connection with Lord and Lady Crewe you owe to your fighting her ladyship's brother.
Your connection with Lord and Lady Crewe you owe to your fighting her ladyship's brother. Oh, sorry. No, it was all nonsense, sir. A canard, but a fortunate mistake, sir. It brought me the patronage of Captain of His Majesty's Navy and the brother of a countess. I do not think Mr. Walter Scott can say as much, and here I am, a respected guest at Sidley Park.
Well, sir, you can say you have received satisfaction.
Oh,
Mr. Noakes, my muddy metal rascal. Where's your spyglass?
I beg your leave. I thought her ladyship. Excuse me.
To my friend Septimus Hodge, who stood up and gave his best on the behalf of the author, Ezra Chater, at Sidley Park, Derbyshire, April 10th, 1809. There, sir, something to show your grandchildren. This is more than I deserve. This is handsome. What do you say, Noakes?
No, not they can see though.